Howdy guys, Bookie Laura here. So in January I had a fantastic start to my reading year, and in February I think I've continued on quite a good plane. So this is the wrap up of the books that I read in February. One of my goals for this year is to focus more on number of pages read and quality rather than number of books read, because I felt that I was under a great deal of pressure from myself to read a lot of books. So as something I'm going to introduce from this wrap up onwards is to look at the number of pages that I've read in a month. Now this got really complicated trying to decide at which pages do I include. So I'm going to go with the number of pages it says on Goodreads, and I'm going to go with the number of pages in books I've completed that month. So if I read part of a book, I won't include those, I will just include them in the total for the following month. And overall that should even out, but otherwise it's going to get really complicated and I won't do it. So in January, I read a grand total of 1,816 pages, which was fab. In February, not quite as good, but given that it's quite a few days shorter, unsurprisingly, it's 1,427, which I think is equally as fantastic when you consider February is a short month and all those sorts of things. I started off the month by reading Eteka, Rise of the Imamba by Ben Hinson. This was a good sort of thriller historical fiction, a genre that I don't typically read. I have done a full and concise review of this book if you're interested. I will leave a link to it down below so you can check it out. But I think I gave it 3 stars on Goodreads. It was kind of like, it's okay, but it's not my thing. That's how I'm going with it. After that, I decided to read A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. This was part of my goal to read more children's books, and boy was I happy with that decision. Part of me thinks I wish I'd read it to my class, but actually I think there are elements of it that are quite complicated. The stories within a story, and I don't know how well that would read aloud when you only have short spaces of time to read. It's a very emotive book. The subject alone is incredibly emotional, but I think the way it is written adds to that dramatically. I must admit that I did shed an actual tear when I read this book. There was a particular line in there, something that is said to Connor, that just broke me, and I think particularly coming at it from a parent's point of view, it's devastating. The only minor negative for me was that I didn't like the main character, but then I don't think you're particularly supposed to like him. He's going through a rough time and being abysmal for that reason. So after I'd read those two, I decided to read Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. I was a little disappointed with this. It's funny sitting down to do a wrap up, because I thought, right, I'll talk about this book. What was it about? And it genuinely took me a good minute or so to remember what on earth happened in this book, and even now I don't feel that my memory of it is that good. I think it was an okay read. It wasn't too shabby, but it wasn't too magical either. There was nothing particularly gripping about it. I must admit that I loved the start. I loved dystopian futures, and I loved all the world building and finding out about the journey, how they got into this place. But once they were in this situation, I couldn't have cared less about what was happening to the characters. I didn't like them. I didn't feel invested in them, which was a real shame. And I must admit that there were times where I was thinking, what is the plot? I think as a reader, I'm somebody that really likes a really clear, driven plot. Like, what am I aiming to? Is it a whodunit? Am I waiting to find out who did this crime? Am I waiting to solve a mystery? If I haven't got that, I lack it. I need to know where it's heading, I think, rather than being character driven. Don't know, does that make sense? I think that the plot flits about quite a lot between different times and different characters, and I think that added to my not connecting with any of the characters and not caring about them. I did like, as the book went on and all the characters intertwined, I like that you get in books sometimes where all these separate characters, their lives become intertwined, and I do enjoy that, so that was quite interesting to see how they all ended up. But generally, it was a really pretty book. I liked the writing, I liked the world, I liked the overall sort of dystopian thing, but the story, meh. And the final book which I read this month was The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood, which was my surprise love of the month. This is probably the book that I enjoyed the most out of all the books that I've read this month. I really enjoyed the way that the plot was revealed to you, that you weren't given all the information straight off. You gradually were dripped information and you grew this picture in your head, and I really liked that it didn't feel like I was bombarded. It felt like I was piecing together clues on my own. The language is incredible. Some of the words and the descriptions I really enjoyed. Obviously it's an emotive subject. I really did like the characters, connected with them, and wanted to see what would happen to them. As ever, dystopian future, then I'm going to love the world building. So I enjoyed finding out about the world, finding out how it worked. I must admit there was an element of being confused about what on earth was going on, but that's just me. As I said with Station 11, I think that they lacked a really clear drive, they lacked a really clear journey. I wasn't able to see where the book was going to end. It felt like I was just sort of seeing somebody's journey, witnessing it and seeing what happened, rather than there being a real clear focus, which isn't necessarily bad, but it's not the most enjoyable for me, which is probably why I gave it only 4 out of 5 stars instead of 5, because I did really like it. So those are the books that I read in February this year. I'm pleased with my little selection. I think it is quite eclectic, quite a range, if I do say so myself. Not a bad month, but equally not an amazing month either, so I'm hoping that next month to read something that's going to make me really feel excited. We'll see what I can do in the TBR. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.